Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a mission that, well, it starts small with just a handful of potatoes, but it expands into some really major implications for sustainability and, food waste globally.
It really does.
We are following this remarkably practical project from two students, Kesser and Steen, from a Nature and Innovation class, and their whole goal is to build a hyper-local, zero-waste food system right on a city patio.
It's just a wonderful demonstration. It shows that, groundbreaking solutions don't always need massive laboratories.
Right.
They just need a bit of observation and ingenuity. And the problem they're tackling, food waste, is just it's gigantic.
It truly is. Our sources, which really ground this whole project, they highlight that in Denmark alone, over 100 million good potatoes are thrown away every single year.
100 million. And while that's, specific to Denmark, the underlying problem waste from just aesthetic standards or improper handling, that impacts supply chains everywhere. Exactly. Their instructor, Professor Hendricks, he emphasizes that waste often begins with a fundamental misunderstanding of the food we handle every day.
Okay.
When people shift from just buying things to actually understanding how to grow them or even just properly store them, their appreciation for that resource, and especially for the soil, it just skyrockets.
That's less.
They waste less automatically.
That really sets our mission for this deep dive then. We're going to cover three key pillars from the sources you've shared. First, we have to talk about the immediate health and safety side of improper potato storage.
Specifically why the fridge is forbidden.
Exactly. Second, we'll get into Kesser and Steen's main innovation, how they plan to transform these tiny discarded scrap potatoes, the ones that would normally just rot into these highly developed, vigorous plants.
Using nothing but a bucket and a patio. It's brilliant.
And finally, we get to the real core of their resourcefulness. We're going to reveal the specific, unconventional ingredients they're getting for free.
From their own backyard and the beach, no less.
To create this custom, nutrient-rich compost, it's a masterclass in creating value from nothing.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that first really immediate problem, the chemistry in the kitchen.
Right. I mean, if we're losing 100 million good potatoes in Denmark every year, Professor Hendricks noted that a huge chunk of that is just from improper storage.
Yeah.
Most people think cold equals preservation, right? So they toss raw potatoes into the fridge.
Alongside the carrots and lettuce. But for potatoes, that 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, it's a disaster.
A complete disaster. Wow.
It absolutely is. That low temperature is a trigger. It sets off a chemical cascade that we call cold stiffening conversion.
Cold stiffening conversion.
Yep, or koldestillelsesdannelse in Danish. Essentially, the potato reacts to that extreme cold by rapidly converting its complex starches into simple sugars. It's a defense mechanism, trying to protect itself from freezing.
So wait, if I leave a potato in the fridge for a week and then I pull it out, it is chemically a different potato than the one I put in.
Precisely. And that's why you get two immediate, really noticeable results. First, when you cook it, it has this weird, unnatural sweet taste.
Which can ruin a savory dish.
Totally. And second, when you cook those sugar-rich potatoes, especially if you're frying or roasting them, they tend to turn dark or discolor really fast. That's just the rapid caramelization of all those simple sugars.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because it's not just about ruining dinner. There's a genuine health concern here, driven by this exact chemistry, that high sugar content dramatically increases the risk of acrylamide formation.
This is the critical point. Acrylamide is a substance that forms when sugar, in this case, that cold-induced sugar, reacts with the amino acid asparagine under high temperatures.
So the browning process.
It's part of the Maillard reaction. Yeah, the browning we rely on for flavor. But when the sugar levels are unnaturally high, like in a cold-stored potato, you get an elevated level of acrylamide.
And elevated acrylamide levels in food are something that health organizations globally tell us to, reduce our intake of.
It's a direct, measurable consequence of a simple storage mistake. The potato is basically sending you a chemical warning sign. Through its taste, its color, it's telling you its structure has been compromised.
And what's so wild is how simple the solution is.
It really is.
The sources are clear. You just bypass the 3 to 4 degree fridge completely. Optimal storage is a dark, cool place. Think a traditional root cellar or, even just a shaded, unheated kitchen cupboard.
As long as the temperature holds steady around 8 degrees Celsius.
That's the sweet spot. Low enough to stop it from sprouting, but high enough to prevent that damaging starch-to-sugar conversion.
And that one small shift from the fridge to a cupboard, It mitigates the acrylamide risk, it preserves the flavor, and it cuts down waste. It's immediate, actionable knowledge for everyone.
That shifts our focus perfectly. So once we've mastered storage to avoid waste, the next step is maximizing the value of what we have. And that is the core motivation for Kesser and Steen's project.
This is where their insight really shines. When Steen learned about the sheer volume of good produce being thrown away, his reaction wasn't, scientific. It was just pragmatic.
What did he say?
He said, if vegetables are so expensive, we should just grow more at home ourselves.
Huh. I love that. And Kesser provided the other half of it, right? This sort of philosophical side.
Exactly. She said if people are invested in growing their own food, they're way less likely to throw it out. And more importantly, they develop this profound respect for soil health. They see the whole process, not just the product on a shelf.
So what's their target resource? What are they actually growing?
This is the genius part. It's 100% waste. The tiny, unselected tubers.
The little ones.
Yeah. When potatoes are harvested, there are always dozens of small ones, sometimes as tiny as a fingernail, that are just too small for the machinery or the market. They're usually just discarded.
Unless you're a high-end restaurant like Noma or something.
Right. They might hand-select them. But Kesser and Steen are bypassing all of that. They're taking these scrap potatoes and seeing potential. Their whole method is to grow these miniatures into high-yield plants in a bucket on a patio.
And it's a closed-loop system, you said.
Totally closed loop. Only homemade compost, zero chemicals, nothing with a barcode. It's an exercise in self-sufficiency for the urban gardener.
This just reminds us why the potato is so valuable to begin with. It's eco-friendly, high yield for the space.
And a nutritional powerhouse. I mean, you've got protein, fiber, starch, minerals like potassium, and, of course, vitamin C.
So the innovation here isn't just which potatoes they chose, the scraps, but how they're handling them before they even hit the soil.
Exactly. They are optimizing the pre-sprouting process to maximize what they can get out of that small space.
We've all heard of the traditional method where farmers lay out seed potatoes in the spring to pre-sprout them. Why do Kesser and Steen need to go beyond that?
The difference is machinery. A commercial farmer needs short, sturdy sprouts. If the sprouts, they call them chits, get too long, they'll just snap off inside the planting equipment.
So their process is limited by the machines.
It's constrained by mechanics. Kesser and Steen have no such constraint.
So their goal is actually to create plants that are way more advanced with longer, thicker sprouts, giving them a huge head start in the spring.
A huge head start. It leads to an earlier harvest and potentially better yields in their limited space. They are intentionally pushing the development envelope, maximizing that vegetative growth before the season even begins.
Okay, but how are they managing this over the winter? My first question is about light. We just said for eating, you want cool and dark. But for this, Kesser is specifically letting them get light, letting the sprouts turn green or even violet. Isn't that toxic?
That's a great question, and it really highlights the difference between storing for eating and storing for propagation. The greening that happens is from solanine, which is toxic, yes. But when you're planting the potato, the sprout and that green skin are buried underground. The new plant that grows from it is perfectly fine. The toxic part is basically used as fuel.
So the rules completely change. They're using light to trigger growth, knowing the harmful parts will be buried and used to fuel the new plant.
Precisely. And Kesser's experience suggests that when you expose them to light in a cool place, the potatoes actually keep better and they produce much sturdier sprouts.
What about them getting wrinkled?
Well, if they start to wrinkle from warmth, it means they're trying to grow too fast. They only need a tiny bit of water to rehydrate the skin. Too much water is always the bigger enemy.
It's so technical, but so simple.
Yeah.
And their first step was just using egg cartons to separate out only the good, healthy tubers.
It's a quality control step that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson learned from family. The sources mention Steen's father, who stopped growing potatoes because he kept buying diseased or frosted ones from the hardware store.
And the crops kept failing.
Right. Contrast that with Oma, the grandmother, who uses her own homegrown stock every year and never has that problem. They're embracing that traditional reliability.
That brings us perfectly to the fuel for these plants. You can't get great potatoes without great soil. Since they're avoiding barcodes, where are they getting their nutrient-rich medium?
This is where their local ingenuity just hits its peak. Their core ingredients are sourced entirely from the seaside and the backyard. Eelgrass and seaweed that just washed up on the beach.
Beach compost. We have the scrap potato, now we have the scrap soil. I love it.
And what's fascinating is the specific nutrient benefit. Most plants need nitrogen for initial growth, but potatoes, They are really demanding of potassium, or K, later on when they're forming the tubers.
And seaweed has that.
Seaweed is an incredible source of trace minerals, but it specifically has extremely high concentrations of potassium. It is tailor-made for potatoes.
But you can't just throw raw seaweed into it,
Yeah.
right? It's not immediately useful. There's a timeline.
Absolutely. Nutrient timing is essential. If the materials aren't broken down, the nutrients are locked up. The sources say that nutrient release from this stuff only really begins after about 3 to 4 months of composting.
So they had to start way in advance.
Way in advance. Early potatoes take about 100 days to harvest, so they had to start their compost in the late fall or early winter. That ensures the potassium would be bioavailable right when the plants needed it most.
This wasn't just mixing. This was proactive composting to meet a nutritional deadline. And they called their method the green sausage method.
A fantastic name for a smart process. To speed up that timeline, they knew they needed to chop the material small. The smaller the pieces, the faster the microbes work.
So they used a lawnmower?
Yep. They enlisted Tante Grun's or Aunt Green's lawnmower to chop everything into what they called 1,000 small pieces. This just dramatically accelerates decomposition. It pushes the pile into hot composting.
That's the key. So what was the final recipe for this green sausage? We know about the nitrogen and minerals from the eelgrass and seaweed. What about the carbon?
They used a really diverse mix of local carbon-rich materials. It was a true reflection of the backyard. Hedge clippings, weeds, leaves.
Softer, faster carbon.
Exactly. And then the heavy lifting came from fresh wood shavings from the local boatyard and old cardboard.
That diversity gives you the perfect carbon to nitrogen ratio for a hot compost. The wood and cardboard are the fuel, and the seaweed and eelgrass provide the protein and minerals.
And they built this mini compost pile perfectly scaled down to the size of a planting bag, a grow bag, for their patio project. It's an optimized, hyper-local, zero-waste system running on free materials.
What stands out to me is that Kesser and Steen are teaching us that true sustainability isn't about buying new eco-friendly things. It's about maximizing the potential of what we already consider trash.
Exactly. From the smallest potato to the seaweed on the shore.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, their whole approach, growing your own, even just in a bucket, it fosters a deeper care for the soil. It reduces consumerism, it reduces cost.
That personal appreciation for the resource, that's the key to lasting, localized sustainability.
So what does this all mean for us? This deep dive has really revealed two powerful, actionable insights. First, the immediate benefit of just keeping potatoes out of the fridge. The 8-degree rule.
To eliminate chemical risks like elevated acrylamide, it's so simple.
And second, the long-term benefit of applying ingenuity to overlooked resources. They showed us how to take scrap potatoes, use free seaside materials, and prepare them to create an advanced high-yield plant.
It's all a lesson in redefining what we see as waste.
It really is.
Right.
Which brings up a final thought. Given that potatoes are so rich in nutrients and thrive with such simple input, what other common kitchen scraps might be easily repurposed into valuable food sources using these same simple container methods?
Think about it. The ends of your carrots, the base of your lettuce, things you usually just throw out. What everyday trash are you currently overlooking that is actually nutrient gold, waiting to be planted, not purchased?
Something to mull over as you organize your kitchen tonight. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into potato power and patio innovation.
We'll catch you next time.